You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, The Goodman Factor, McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring, Chiro Thin, Unmarket Your Practice, and Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt DiDuro. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 140 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host Luke Millette. Here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Matt DiDuro, and this guy is working on the cellular level. And if you want to know how he has created the new stem cell, stay tuned. Dr. Matt, tell us your chiropractic story and what influenced you to become a chiropractor.
It's funny. I played Pop Warner football when I was young, and from 10 to 14, I think, or 10 to 13. And when I was about 11, I made a tackle during a game on Sunday and woke up the next morning with this terrible stiff neck and couldn't go to school, debilitating, like torticollis. And my mom took me to the emergency room where they gave me a shot of Darvocet to help kill the pain. And I ended up throwing up in the ER, went home. My mom didn't know what to do. My dad, who owned a local shoe store, came home at lunch, picked me up, took me to his chiropractor, who is Dr. Antonucci in Geneva, New York. A wonderful guy. I remember these big hands. And he, put me on the table, made a couple nice little moves, and I couldn't believe it. It was really transformational. And I went home and I got to finish out that season and play. Fast forward 3 years, I'm a few years, I'm a senior in high school playing football, and second to last game of the year, same thing. I went in to make a tackle and got a stinger, went down my arm, and couldn't really move my arm for a day or so. And my dad took me another chiropractor in town. Dr. Antonucci had retired. And so I wasn't able to play my last game because of the injury. And I went on to play college lacrosse. And my junior year, 1986, I was playing at Nazareth College in Rochester, New York, and got hit from behind during a fall ball game. It was a kind of a legal check, and it whipped my neck back. And same thing, I was sore that night, and the next morning, woke up, couldn't lift my arm, couldn't move my hand. I went to the team orthopedist, who actually thought it was my shoulder, gave me a sling, put me in PT. And after like the third visit with the physical therapist, he said, "Dude, it's not your shoulder, it's your neck." I'm like, "Can you work on my neck?" And he was like, "No, I got to get another prescription from the doctor." I'm like, "I'm out of here." So the team orthopedist sent me to a neurologist, Dr. Joseph Mann, in Rochester, New York. And he checked me out, and we had MRIs, and I had some pretty bad bulging discs. And by this point, I couldn't even lift up a 5-pound. My right arm was basically useless. And I just wanted the pain to be gone. And so he scheduled surgery, cervical fusion surgery. And this is in 1986, where they went through the back. And I had 6 weeks until surgery. And I asked him before I left, I said, "Hey doc, when can I start playing lacrosse again?" And he said, "Oh, you'll never be able to play contact sports again." I'm like, whoa. And there was no pro lacrosse at this time. So you wanted to finish off 4 years of college. So I did really some research and looking at everything. And my older brother, Joe DiDuro, who is the founder and CEO of Neuropathy Treatment Centers of America, he was just graduating from Palmer back then. He is opening up a clinic in our hometown, and it wasn't even painted. He had an x-ray room, but he wasn't even seeing patients yet. He said, "Come down." So I would drive 45 minutes from Rochester down to Geneva, and he checked me out. He did some x-rays, found some things he didn't like, and he put me on the table, made some simple, nice adjustments. And I remember, oh, yeah, okay. Made my next appointment. I walked outside. When I went to back up in the car, I couldn't believe my range of motion, how much it improved. So I went 3 times a week for the next 4 weeks. And at the end of like the second week, I was able to lift my hand with a 5-pound weight. Then I was at 10 pounds. And I slowly rehabbed it. So I was like 15, 18 pounds. And I went in for my pre-op meeting appointment with Dr. Mann. And he was like, what the heck have you been doing? I'm like, I've been going to a chiropractor. I was all excited. I was actually pre-med. And I was so excited to tell him. And he went like this. He's like, I've never seen chiropractic work for anybody. Just like that, right? And I'm like, well, let me be the first to tell you. So, sure enough, that kind of changed my direction. And again, I mean, I had 3 times before I was 19 where chiropractic basically saved my sporting career and my function of my body. So, that was a big turning point. I got to work for my brother's office right after graduating in '89 for a few months. I took a job out in LA, and I looked at going to Whittier and LACC and Life West. But I had a bunch of buddies that were living in Atlanta, so I moved to Atlanta and I did my prereqs there, and I was going to go to New York Chiropractic College. And I ended up meeting my wife, Sherry DiDuro, and ended up staying in Atlanta, and really it was the best thing that could happen. Life was just a great school.
So you've had quite the history with the chiropractic profession, and how long have you been practicing now?
25 years this year.
25 years. And you've probably seen a lot of things happening throughout the change of the guard over 2 decades.
Yes, in marketing. It was funny, back when I was starting in New York State, you couldn't use testimonials. And so great shout out to the guy that does the killer ads. Gosh, I can't, he's going to kill me. But he developed these killer ads. I don't know if you ever remember these.
I do remember them, and they were like the newspaper flyers.
Yeah, Bobby, Dr. Bob. And he was in Rome, Georgia. And I built my clinic, one of my second clinics, just on these wonderful killer ads. And they were perfect, right? They told a simple story. But I got in trouble with the New York board. One day they came knocking on my door, like in February in '98, I think it was. And they were like, hey, you're not allowed to use testimonials. And I'm like, oh yeah, the laws changed like 2 weeks ago. I was watching it, right? So I've always been marketing. I have thousands of testimonials. I used it in my life for 25 years. And it's funny how we've seen the progression from, the big VHS tapes, right? To little zip drives that we've had, and the progression. But I've constantly stayed on it, and that's really what built. I was in New York for 12 years. I had 2 practices, and then I moved down after an injury. Had a patient, 350 pounds, fall off my table, and I grabbed him, and I ended up dislocating my shoulder, tearing my labrum. And they didn't know it. And I went in for a rotator cuff surgery, and I came out, and they're like, yeah, you're done for 13 or 14 months. So I sold some practices up there, retired down to Atlanta, where my wife is from, and we raised our 3 daughters in East Cobb, just close to Life University. And in 2007 to 2009, I actually got to teach at my alma mater. And I worked in the CHOP, which is the Center for Health and Optimal Performance. And then my last year, I was co-director of the functional rehab department. So it's where I started learning. I did CBP. I was a big CBP doc for 12 years. And I was able to incorporate some of that and tractions. And Dr. Joe Haysbrook was my partner and the founder of that. So it was really fun. He was a physical therapist and chiropractor.
Well, a couple things you said there, Matt, is I got my bones in the CBP world. My first job was a traction technician. I did that for 6 years. So that's when I really started to learn about the chiropractic profession, what it could do for people. And I was setting up tractions, and you can probably catch like this number and it might make your eyes open big, but I was doing up to 500 traction setups a week.
Oh my. And to do it right, you need a big team.
Yeah.
So you were in the trenches. Thank you. for all
Yeah, so that's where it started, man. So thank you for the acknowledgement. But one of the things for clarity, it's Dr. Robert Mann. I looked that up as we were going. He started the killer ad.
Robert Manna.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Manna. Yes, he's a great guy. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so for clarity reasons, I like to be the fact finder as we're going in case somebody doesn't remember something. But as we progress into the interview a little bit more, I know that you've done something really amazing over the past couple of years. And let's talk about what you're doing that makes you so unique in this chiropractic space now.
Thank you. Yeah, about 3 years ago. So I'm past president of Neuropathy Treatment Centers of America, 2017. My brother Joe was the founder. I've been treating diabetic and neuropathy patients since 2009, 2010 in Atlanta. At one point, we were seeing over 900 new patients a year in that clinic in Atlanta. And even though it worked pretty well, I mean, it was wonderful. We had a 90% patient satisfaction with our protocol. The big problem was we still weren't helping 10%. And we couldn't figure out why. We knew, we figured out one thing, that even though it's a nerve issue, the underlying issue was a blood flow issue. But some of these people were so damaged that our protocol wasn't helping them. So that was the weakest part. And I came across this lithotripsy device that is, and do you guys know what a lithotripsy device is?
Well, if you would like to explain that, I think that there's a lot of people out there besides us that wouldn't know. So if you could give some knowledge on the background behind that device, because we might not know, but if we don't know, that means other people are probably raising their hand. I want to know what the heck that is.
Yeah. So a lithotripsy device has been around for about 40 years, and it uses heat, light, and electrohydraulically produced sound waves that will penetrate through a body and break up little kidney stones. So those big devices that you have in hospitals, those are like $550,000, and they are focused, meaning they can pinpoint right where we want to hit that kidney stone. And they use a CT arm as well to kind of figure out exactly. It's considered anesthetic. I mean, it's considered surgery because they use anesthetics, and they knock you out, and it's a 20-minute procedure, and it has about an 85% success rate. So the one that I'm using is a mobile lithotripsy. It's low intensity, and it's unfocused, meaning we can, the surface area is like the bottom of, a bottle. That's how much treatment area we can do at one time. And for the last 15 years, this has been emerging in Europe and the rest of the world, this mobile lithotripsy. And in Austria, they've used it for the last 11 years in the work comp system. So it's done wonderful. And maybe one of the better work comp systems in the world, because if you get injured there, they will pay for you to go anywhere in the world to get a treatment if they don't offer it in Austria. And people were going down to Germany to have these treatments done, especially for non-healing fractures, ulcers, wounds, things like that. So Dr. Wolfgang Schauden, back about 10 years ago, who ran one of the work comp centers, he was given a device by his director. They had a 3-month period where they were going to prove that it didn't work, that it was a sham, because they didn't want to pay for people to go to Germany and travel and all the technology. So Dr. Wolfgang Schaden, who is now the director 10 years later of the Austrian work comp system, he started using it. And about 30 days later, he comes back to his director and says, I don't want to practice without this anymore. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, all chronic injuries, we're using it for low back issues, these non-healing fractures, these wounds. We've never seen anything like it. So they implemented it. They now have it in 11 trauma centers across Austria. Spinal cord injury patients, they have this done within 72 hours. On a spinal cord injury. And I believe it was July of 2018, they made it a national referendum. So any patients injured, and this thing, it is wild. It decreases inflammation, decreases swelling, decreases pain in that first 15 hours. But it also, what we found in research in the last few years, is that it actually activates your body's own natural stem cell production. So within 45 minutes, you actually will have your resident stem cells coming out of this dormant state and calling on a cellular level for all these other helper cells to come to this area to start the healing process. And it almost tricks the body into thinking there's a new injury. So 3 years ago, I came across the John Warlick, who's the CEO, and he actually went to high school with my brother-in-law and my wife at Walton High School in Marietta. And he's a really nationally renowned wrestler back then. He went to Clemson, and but I got dragged up there. They're like, "This is going to help your diabetic patients," and I'm like, "How is sound waves going to help this is crazy." So I get dragged up there by a friend, John Whaley, and I did after that injury where I dislocated my shoulder. I actually had one surgery on my shoulder. That's 99% better, but I ended up having 2 surgeries on my wrist that never really improved. So I'd had that and suffered for almost 11 years at the time. And he says, let's do your wrist. So sure enough, we did my wrist, and it was painful. This thing not only can detect and locate the area of injury, but it's also a diagnostic tool. So if you use it over an area with normal tissue, there's no pain. But as soon as you get to an area of inflammation or damaged tissue or arthritis, patients are like, right there, oh. So it was very painful. And he's like, hey, the more pain you have, the better results. So I'm like, okay. So I had to play in a golf event. If I went to play golf, it would be 3-4 days of icing. It wasn't worth playing golf anymore. But I played in a charity event, and I was like, wait a second, my wrist doesn't hurt that night. So I went to the range the next day. I hit a bucket of balls. I couldn't believe it. I went back. So the cool thing is you only need like 3 or 4 treatments to get the maximum amount of healing. I went back the next week. It was less painful. I went back the following week, less painful. Now I could ride my bike again. I could push a lawnmower. I could play golf. So 3 treatments. I never had another treatment for 14 months. It was wild. I was sold. I bought it, and I started using it just on our patients, those 10% of patients that hadn't improved. And I remember the date, 9/11/2017, and I started working on this one patient, and it was like something flicked inside her body, and it started working, and she started feeling better. And again, 3 weeks, each foot we did, and she was happy. So we used it on all the patients that hadn't recovered till the end of 2017. And then we put it into our normal protocol in January of 2018, and we've used it for the last 2 years. So that's it. It's really a very futuristic device.
So let me ask you a couple depth questions on that. One of the things you said is it helps people with neuropathy. I know that a lot of people out there, they're like, well, what is neuropathy? I know that it stemmed from some type of a sickness that people get, probably something with diabetics, probably something post chemotherapy cancer patients. So what you're saying is you can help in the recovery phases and the healing processes of the sick of the sick.
Yeah, these are the sickest of the sick. You're right. Obviously, peripheral neuropathy is you have your central nervous system, right? It's the trunk of the tree. And then anything off of that is the periphery. So this is any disease process to that peripheral nervous system. And 72% of our patients are type 2 diabetics. 44% of our patients have been on a statin drug, a cholesterol lowering medication, for over 6 months. 15% have had 1 spinal surgery. And then 10% are chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy. And these patients are the worst of the worst. Their immune systems are suppressed. You can't really use a lot of things on them. They're very fragile state. And, we literally have actually patented the use of this device, this mini lithotripsy, and the polychromatic lights that we use, and our Toronto clinical scoring test to really treat and track this, because we get a baseline on how their sensory nerves are working. And it's really, it's a fundamental thing. Chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy is the #1 reason why people have to stop cancer treatment. So, we looked at it from our team and said, well, how can we make a difference in this? And My wife 5 years ago, Sherry, God bless her, she was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And so we were, we were thrown into this. It's episode 1 of my podcast. I don't want to go into everything, but she did 4 months of chemotherapy, and every other week she would do chemo. And after her second chemo, she developed neuropathy so bad in her fingers that she couldn't hold a toothbrush. She couldn't hold metal forks. She couldn't put her shoes on because her feet had swollen up. And we went in to see her oncologist, and the oncologist said, oh, we're going to have to stop your chemo. And I said, well, what about, her survival rates? How will that change? She had told us, it's going to be 87% survival rate doing these 3 types of chemo cocktails with radiation, with surgery. And she said, oh, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. And I said, wait a second. I said, Doc, I don't know if you remember, but I work with Neuropathy Treatment Centers of America. I said, do you think we could use these polychromatic lights on her while she's going through chemo? And she stopped. She went and talked to one of her peers, and she came back. She says, as long as you wait 24 hours to get the majority of the chemo out, then you can just start using the lights. And we actually have a documentary on her case. She's the first female that we know of that went through both chemo and our protocol. And she was able to get all 8 sessions. And God bless her, knock on wood, 5 years later, she's virtually cancer-free.
Wow.
So we had to develop this, right? We had to use it. So I that's a long answer to your question, but we used it. We do this first on our families and ourselves, before we do it. And my brother developed neuropathy treatment centers after my mom in 2000. She developed rhabdomyolysis after taking statin drugs for 3 weeks. And rhabdomyolysis is terrible, debilitating breakdown of muscle. Protein gets into the blood, and we back then, my brother figured this out. We started using these horse equine pads. They're the first ones we could get. And we'd wrap them around her feet, and literally it was a 3-week process to get her back. But, our mother was the reason why we started this Neuropathy Treatment Centers of America. And then we had to put on her thing. She could never take statins again. Statins are the biggest joke on Americans. Right? They're killing your body 1 cell at a time. And statins, if I could just tell you a little bit about them, they are a cholesterol lowering drug, and they're an anti-angiogenesis, meaning they stop the formation of new blood pathways. So, you see people here in the States, they once they get prescribed, what do you see? They're on it forever, right? It's like this reoccurring. Every month, they're able to get their statin drugs. It's the most profitable drug in the history of pharmaceuticals. Remember that. In Europe, they use it more as a stopgap drug, meaning if a patient has high cholesterol, they may put them on it for 3 to 6 weeks, but they meet with an exercise physiologist, they meet with a nutritionist, they make sure they're exercising and eating right. Once their cholesterol levels come down, they take them off. But here, we leave it on forever. So that's the biggest thing that we see with patients. And one of the things I want to do is make sure that we get the word out. Like, cholesterol and fat are the building block for all of our hormones. Your brain is 60% fat and cholesterol. Your myelin sheath that protects your nerves, that's 70% fat and cholesterol. So we need these good cholesterol and fats in our body.
Well, pun intended, is you did strike a nerve with me. And I think one of the things that I wanted to mention is that we've been showing that the sedentary lifestyle is killing people, but sedentary lifestyle on drugs is killing people quicker. And I love what you said there about, working on your family first. because a lot of the people, even if you're into the chiropractic space as we are, the hardest people to make impact on with chiropractic services are the people closest to you. The hardest people to say, hey, quit smoking, are the people closest to you. The people that were like, hey, you might not want to eat like that anymore, and you might want to consider exercise and diet more. Those are the hardest people to make impact on you, the people closest to you. Now, out of necessity for getting people better, I could see how the genius of you and your brother came together to develop a system and a strategy to not only heal your mom and get her back to a state of healing and repair, but also, you know, working on your wife, I'm sure was incredible for you to be able to find this technology and to develop it into a protocol that could help her with healing and the process around that as well. So I think that there's a lot of things that we can like learn from each other. Mm-hmm. When it comes from sharing these stories that we're not alone. There is an answer. There's a reason why European countries have a higher level of life expectancy than ours, and why there's a higher quality of life on the health grades in different countries. I think we might even be close to like 40 at this point as to like where our health grade is as to like quality of life around the world. So I see us, we play this role as like, hey, we're smart and we're strong. We win the Olympics and we do this and that. But really when it comes to quality of life, I really think that going back and retracing into some of the things we said, that when people don't have a positive stance with understanding why they're on a drug for the rest of their life, they're not being evaluated properly as they're going through some type of a heavy dose of chemo. They're not being evaluated properly as they're getting put on to some drug that doesn't have like a end time. Like we have to think about like quality of life when it comes to like when you get onto something. I'm not on one prescription. Like, you know, I think that when people think about it, I think it was almost 6 years ago, Luke and I came out with a film called Chiropractic, the documentary, and Billy DeMoss told me that the average American's on 12.9 prescriptions. And when you think about like the propensity for people to actually medicate, when you think about these deep entrenched sicknesses that people are going through, they're more common now than ever. And I think the technology that you're coming onto, that you're starting to massively shift into different metropolitan areas across the United States, I think there's so much to be recognized when it comes to healing the people that are closest to us, knowing that drugs aren't a lifetime effort, knowing that you have to have proper nutrition, you have to have proper exercise, you have to have proper mental stability, and you have to know that there is an answer. And I think that that's why most people are saying, throw anything at me, throw it all at me, throw it at me as fast as you can, because I just want to start feeling better. But what they don't realize is once that happens, you can't go back. You can't go back and not have a surgery that's been done. You can't go back and not have 6 months of a statin drug in your body that's been done. You can't go back and say, I had chemo for like 6 treatments. That's not going to like, you can't go back in time. Like the breath I just had, I don't get it again.
That's
so
right.
When we talk about like making impact on communities and, you know, expanding the healing process scope, I think that there's a reason why conservative nations like Austria have found that going to this type of a systematic, whatever it takes, we want our people healthy and happy, and we want them to heal quicker, because work comp actually makes the GDP drop down on what they can do. And most people realize that have big corporations, they want a healthier employee. You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, The Goodman Factor, McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring, Chiro Thin, Unmarket Your Practice, and Free My Pain Now with Dr. Matt DiDuro. Let's hustle.
You know, our communities are very sick right now. And, you know, that was one of the reasons why I started my podcast, Free My Pain Now, with myself. And thank you guys for helping me get the message out there. But really, it was about our patients and the people in our community becoming their own healthcare advocates. They have to become an expert on their condition. They have to like figure out everything, because doctors have hundreds of patients and they don't know your name. They're looking at a file when they come in, and you have to be the guy that understands. And I saw my wife do it with her mom when she got sick in the fall. And we all had to. You have to ask the right questions. You have to know why they're doing what they're doing. But to get back to the lithotripsy device, once I started, I was a niche neuropathy clinic in Atlanta, and Atlanta's a big city. But then we started using it on knees, elbows, wrists, shoulders, whiplash. I mean, these patients that have been in car accidents, I'm telling you, this helps accelerate the healing in these patients. And again, we can use it as a diagnostic test. If they're in a bad car accident, we can scan the neck and cervical spine. If there's no issue, then we go to the low back, boom. We can order an MRI right after to document for that patient. So then we started becoming this alternative pain clinic where people with chronic degenerative issues started coming in. And I just couldn't believe it. It was like every week there was another medical considered miracle. These patients that were walking, and you can see on our website, atlpaininstitute.com, there's a guy, Frankie Smith. He was 27 years as a bus driver in New York City. He had a stroke 20 years ago and lost function in his left hand and still drove a bus, but he was in this constant contracture. He came in, he had one treatment, $49 introductory special. He was able to move his hand again, right? It's on, you can see it on our website. It's been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. But I said, Frankie, when's the last time you've been able to move that hand? He goes, 20 years. Afterwards, I said, Frankie, what would you have paid to do that? He goes, I would have paid $4,950, right? But it's not about how much money we can make. It's about bringing this type of technology to our communities. The one thing that was amazing is that I was able to get this on the show, The Doctors, the nationally syndicated show, The Doctors. And they nicknamed it the stem cell machine because I sent them over 8 papers out of our 122 peer-reviewed studies that shows that we activate our body's own natural healing abilities. And within 45 minutes, you've got the resident stem cells that are starting to work. And in the true long-term healing, it's 8 to 10 weeks later when you have the most amount of production of stem cells and migration to that treated area. So they nicknamed the stem cell machine. So it was great. We got on there, they featured us, and then it just started taking off, and it's pretty cool to see this happen because my goal a couple of years ago was, listen, I want this in every state. I want patients in communities to have access to this. And Dr. Dan Pompa was huge at helping us get this out to his health centers of the future. I don't know if you know his son, Daniel, who's 22 years old, but had a terrible cliff fall, fell from 60 feet, broke both his ankles, 2 vertebrae in his spine, and also 2 ribs. In 75% of the cases, he would be paralyzed. They opted not to have surgery. We treated him with this device 3 weeks in a row, twice a week, his ankles, his spine, and his wrist. He was walking in 3 weeks, okay? Dr. Pompa became a full believer in it, right? That episode, I believe it's 12. I'll have to look on it before we go. But Daniel tells his story, and, Dr. Pompa has been, he was one of the first to adopt this and really want to get it out to his health centers in the future, clinics. So that's been huge, and so excited about that.
Well, I'm really interested in what you're doing, and that's one of the reasons that when you reached out to me about working with Chiro Hustle, I was like, you know what, I want to see what this guy's up to. I want to know like the lives that he's touching with this and how it's actually making an impact on people. And then I said, hey, Luke, do you want to reach back to him and like start connecting with them and seeing like what the story is behind this and get some information on it? But it's really, it's honorable for me to see what you're doing. And I'm an expert in new patients for chiropractic offices. And what you said there that like really like sparked my attention was most chiropractors go out of business 50% clip within 5 years of practice because of one purpose. They can't get enough new patients. Well, something you said there is you had 900 new patients in 1 year. And I think that most chiropractors would do like gymnastics to be able, they would do anything to get an extra 30 to 50 new patients a month. So if
yeah, and I tell you, that's why I love this paired with chiropractic. I mean, you know, mechanical stress, 97% of back pain comes from a mechanical stress to the spine, to the joints of the spine. 3% are either fractures, tumors, or cancer, right? So if you have films and know that that's not the case where back pain is coming from, when we're able to use this on chronic injuries paired with chiropractic and removing that mechanical stress or subluxation or joint dysfunction, whatever you want to call it, the body heals quicker. Again, above, down, inside out, right? So this device, I mean, you should see what it's doing with scars. I mean, it accelerates. Kevin Durant, NBA professional basketball player, tore his Achilles at the end of last season. And he had a wonderful foot and ankle specialist, Dr. O'Malley out of New York, who not only did his repair of his Achilles, but had our device right in the OR and using it on the tendons. So this is really cool, and it accelerates healing. Dr. John Mullins, who's just on my podcast, episode 25, he's a plastic surgeon. He's actually getting, for women who've had breast augmentation and lost sensation, he's actually getting their feeling back, right? We actually have a patent for peripheral nerve regeneration. There's not many companies that can say this. You know, I'm passionate about it because I want to get this out more. When you talk about Chiro Hustle, I mean, I loved it because in the last 3 months, I just wrote up where I've been. I've been to 9 states and delivered 17 devices. So we have them now in California, Oregon, Washington, Utah, New York, New Jersey, Georgia, Florida, Colorado. I'm here at Dr. Derek Fox's office in Broomfield, Colorado. He's the first in Colorado. I mean, we had this big gap. So, you know, I am on a mission and you guys are helping me get the word out. We need more successful chiropractors, right?
Amen.
And I keep in touch with my students from 10, 11 years ago, and it is sad when they're struggling. This is not only a wonderful healing device and actually helps accelerate the body's natural abilities to heal, but it is a profit center. We've basically developed a profitability and productivity increasing system with this. Within 10 minutes, we do this introductory special for 10 minutes and we see patients. We can locate, detect, diagnose, and then start the treatment, all in 10 minutes. It changes a chiropractic visit from $35 to $150, right? And you know, stem cells, this is my big pitch that I've been doing. Stem cells may be the future of healthcare, okay? But right now, they're the future for millionaires and professional athletes because it's $5,000 to $7,000 a joint. You know, I know Shaquille O'Neal comes into one of our clinics in Atlanta and he gets both knees, both hips, his low back, and it's $22,000. And we don't even know if it's going to be successful, right? The average Joe can't afford that. This is a fraction of the cost. They need 3 to 5 treatments and they get unbelievable 70, 75% improvements. In the big picture, like what do you start with, right? These stem cell clinics out there, they're going, they want one and done. They want to hit those big numbers. They want to sell a $7,000 stem cell injection and then never have to see that patient again, right? Oh, I'm sorry, 50%. Yeah, I'm sorry. You probably need another one, right? In the algorithm of health, you start with least invasive, less expensive, and you move from there, right? So if we get 75% improvement, then maybe we use PRP, then maybe we use stem cells. But let's start thinking logical and not just going for the home run, right? Being in business is about longevity. Too many chiropractors have this rabbit or hare mentality, right? They want to go out and bang it out for 2 years and make a lot of money, right? I'm more of a tortoise. I've got that tortoise mentality. I'm in this for the long haul, right? And I'm showing these doctors how they can increase the profitability in their clinics, get better results, and then do it for the next 10 years. right? That's what 10, 15 years. In the doctors, in the medical doctors, chiropractors, osteopaths, naturopaths, the ones that are resonating with me are guys my age, like 48 to 55, that their bodies are wearing out, a guy like Duncan McCollum in Capitola, California, he's been practicing for 30 years. He had treatment on his shoulder. He felt better that he could, that he could start adjusting again. Then he bought a machine, and it's just re-energized his practice and his community. I get notes every week from different doctors like, thank you so much. You don't know how you've transformed my practice. You don't know how you've transformed my patients. So that's what it's about, man, making a difference. And I love what you guys are doing, your mission, and that we're able to kind of connect, and you've helped me on this journey. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're advocates for the change, and we want to see people get the information. I made a sole mission was to disseminate content for chiropractic because I met Dr. John DiMartini, and he told me about 6 years ago that chiropractic needed more media leverage. And I made it my sole mission to create content and to be on the front lines of being that like force of change. And that's why we've created 2 films on the profession. That's why we have blown the roof off with Hustle. And that's why we've been a very consistent generator of content, because one of the things that I sell people on when I go out and do marketing events is most people just don't know where to go or who to trust. And the AMA has tried to bury chiropractic several times. And to see that there's been such a disconnect between the healing outcomes because people don't know where to go or who to trust, because the different side of the story, and I've had this conversation recently, is it's not medical doctors not getting along with chiropractors anymore. It's medical doctors in fear of not doing the right things and doing the right type of protocols with the big pharma. So basically what big pharma does is they're playing both sides, and they're watching medical doctors not like chiropractors and chiropractors not like medical doctors, and they're winning. But now medical doctors are fearful of their careers because they don't want to play the game anymore that big pharma wants them to play. So now we have this whole collusion when it comes to the other people that are trying to like really make chiropractors look like the fools for so long. And now they're all realizing that chiropractors had it right all along. And now the people that were getting the big insurance kickbacks are now being in control by people that might not have their best interest. So now we have all these medical doctors that are practicing that are afraid of their futures because they might not be playing by the same rules as the big pharma game wants to play. So I think it's time that chiropractors and medical doctors start building a stronger alliance, and they start realizing that they're more alike than they are different, but they have to quit over prescribing and looking at that as their meal ticket for the future of healing people. So
you make a great point. This is like the Trojan Horse. Like I have 3 medical doctors that work in our clinic. I train medical doctors all over the country. Dr. Tomas Ginga out in Silverado, Colorado. He is what we call a reform medical doctor. He's amazing, and he's using this technology. You talked about Dr. John DiMartini. Funny story, back in, I don't know, it must have been 87 or 88. My brother actually hired him to come in and speak to our clinic in 1988. And I got to hang out with him, and he didn't drive. So it was my job to drive him back to the airport. And we went to Syracuse Airport, and I got 45 minutes in the car with him. And I kid you not, he's the reason why I committed to going to chiropractic college. On that ride, he talked me into it. And, because I was scared. Like, I didn't know if I could do it. There was fear, right? And I'd already been in college. I've had 4 concussions. My head was not, my brain, it was really hard for me. It was the hardest thing I ever did going to chiropractic college. And, I had an older brother and a cousin, and I was like, oh my God, if I can't get through chiropractic college, they're gonna hate me. And so, nice shout out to him, because he really sparked it. He said, like, you've got to do it. You're meant to do this. So I loved your interview with him last year. I thought it was wonderful. And, But yes, I think this is where we can bridge. I mean, we're getting ready to do a national symposium, and we're bringing medical doctors and urologists. And I mean, this actually works really well for erectile dysfunction. So a lot of urologists have this. And I want people to understand this is not shockwave therapy. There is like this radial device out there that is like $15,000. And a lot of doctors make this $15,000 or $20,000 mistake because it has 1/8 of the biological effects as what our device does. Ours is true, genuine lithotripsy, okay?
Well, I know that we've totally blown our script up here with you today on the questions we're going to be asking you. So I want Luke to get involved a little bit too, and he can pick whatever he wants to interject with you at this point in the interview, because we have about 15 minutes left with you. I just want to make sure we make the most of the last quarter of the interview with you. So Luke, let's get Matt some firepower and see what we can pull out of him.
Well, some of the best interviews are when we just totally go off the rails, because it means we're actually talking about something exciting and not scripted. So no, I've had a lot of fun just kind of watching you guys go at it. But I am curious, what do you think is going to be, where's the chiropractic profession going to be in the next 20 years?
Well, I honestly think paired with this device, that this gives us superhero healing powers. You know, when I go to train these clinics, they say, Doc, who do I get for our 4 hours of demo? And I said, all those patients that you've worked with over the last 10, 12 years that you love, that still have chronic nagging issues, bring those in. So one might be a patient who had Harrington rods in her spine for the last 25 years and lived constant pain. And after 1 8-minute session, she gets off the table and there's no pain. And she can't believe it. And what just happened? I mean, we see that every week at these clinics. So I do think that this device will help put chiropractic where we should have been for the last 115 years, in the forefront, as the primary portal of entry. You know, our CEO kind of got John Warlick for TRT, Tissue Regeneration Technology. He felt like this device paired with a chiropractor is a better way for knee issues, ankle, plantar fasciitis, golfer's elbow, than going to an orthopedist or physical therapist. He got a lot of slack for saying that, but it's true. He's seeing it. Every week we put another beautiful testimonial out there. And the thing that's cool is the patients, this is driven, like even stem cell, it was a consumer-driven market, right? Consumers wanted it. They asked for it, so doctors had to go learn. This is the same thing happening with the stem cell machine, is that patients, they want it. I have people flying in from Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland, driving from Nashville, Tennessee, Birmingham, Alabama, driving up from Northern Florida, South Carolina. They're coming there because they want something different, and we have it. So listen, I'm not anything special. I'm just a guy who likes to, I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I don't mind taking some risks here and there. And, you know, I think that's what patients and doctors needed to see. Like, let's prove this model. And that's what we're doing in these 17 different clinics from across the country. So to me, you're going to see this wave. I honestly, and I'm going to make a statement here, in the next few years, if a chiropractor doesn't have one of these devices, his clinic is going to be antiquated, like that of a flip phone from 2008. And you heard it first from me, okay? So you're going to see that they're going to need this to stay in the realm.
So by that same token, do you think if there are any struggling offices out there, do you think this device machine would be able to turn their clinic around?
You know, I pick and choose who's going to get this. I don't think this is the panacea for practices. Like, I talk to chiros that are seeing, 50, 60 people a week. This isn't going to be the magic bullet. the thing that I'm so impressed of, when we're putting this in clinics that are seeing 200, 250 a week, that they can just use their patient pool, right? Their tribe, their network, and they don't have to do any external marketing for 3 to 4 months. And I mean this, we've got it almost down, we know. And then on the 5th month, we start kicking on their external marketing and start driving in other patients. So no, I don't at this point, because it is a big ticket item, and but it will transform an already existing patient practice.
So you mentioned
question,
marketing.
Great question.
So you mentioned marketing. What kind of marketing do you do for this device at this time?
Well, my podcast has been huge, right? And you know, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's funny. Like in France, I'm like 34th on the alternative healthcare podcast.
Nice.
In Europe, I'm like 67th. In Australia, I'm 104 trend, right? But in the States, nobody even knows about me, right? And one of the reasons why I was so impressed with what you guys have done. So, you know, podcast has been good to get to these doctors that are interested, because they all ask the same question. What is this device and how do I implement it? And what do I do? Oh, watch episode 3, watch episode 5, you know? And I've actually created an automated system, and I'm very low tech. You know, I'm glad I even got to enter this meeting. So the marketing that we do, that we found best, and it's been for the last 22, 23 years, is we let our patients tell our story, right? Tell their story, right? So all of a sudden they see these testimonials and they say, wow, she's helping this lady who's got the same symptoms that I do, and she's walking again, right? If she can help, if they can help her, maybe they can help me. And really it gives them hope, right? Dr. Tomas out in Silverado, he said to me, Matt, why are you all over the place, man? Why don't you want to stay time with your family? And I said, dude, there's a war out there. And, you know, I need people like you to come on, right? And then we had that young lady, her name was Chelsea, who had the Harrington rods in her spine for 25 years, that had this unbelievable kind of breakthrough. And now she's skiing with her family again. Like, I looked at Tomas, I go, that's why I do this, because we're changing people's lives. Maybe one spine at a time, maybe one community at a time.
So let's talk about you and your personal life a little bit. What are your hobbies? I know you like to golf. What do you like to read? What do you listen to? What do you do in your spare time, if you have any?
Yeah, I do. I constantly, you know, I'm constantly always working on myself. You know, I'm a student of life for the rest of my life. When I left Life University, I want to be a humble person. Right? I used to hate some of these doctors who thought they knew everything. Right now, I'm reading Dr. Frank Schallenberger's book. He's the father of ozone therapy. Amazing, amazing guy. What they did bringing ozone therapy into the States, similar type of problems that we're having, you know, getting this device to the marketplace. So he's been a mentor. I was lucky enough to work on him back in November. I flew out to Reno, and he's invited me to be part of his national conferences now, because he had back pain for 2 years and 1 6-minute treatment. He's like, what did you do? And I said, I took a line out of his book. I said, you know, medicine is an industry in this country. And I said, things that are efficient and effective are bottom shelved, right? And we need to put the stuff that helps patients on the top shelf, right? So he liked that. But that's my favorite book right now. I'm also reading Dr. Richard Bernstein's book, The Diabetic Solution. He's the oldest type 1 diabetic in the world. I think he's 81. He had diabetes when he was 11. Great book. People come from all over the world to see him, he's the guy that said the perfect blood glucose level is 83. So my wife's a type 1 diabetic for the last 17 years. So we're constantly looking, you know, how to make our bodies better. We're biohackers, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. And this device is the ultimate biohacking tool.
Well, I know we're starting to come up at the end of our time, but I wanted to find out what are some other websites or social media links where people can find out more about you and what you're doing.
So doctors can go to my YouTube page is Dr. Matt DiDuro. That's DiDuro. And that's a good one. We also have a YouTube page called Free My Pain Now, where you can see my podcasts. And if doctors are interested, they can actually go to our website, freemypainnow.com, and fill out a link. And just put Chiro, well, let's do CH so we know they saw us on Chiro Hustle. And we've got some really cool discounts, and we'll be having some boot camps where doctors can come. So I'm really excited to send that message via your wonderful podcast.
Awesome. So now we have a Chiro Hustle special. If you head over to freemypainnow.com and find some kind of Chiro Hustle promotion over there.
That's right.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to today?
The only other question I was hoping you were asked, what's my favorite band?
What is your favorite band?
It's a funny one. There's two right now, but Rainbow Kitten Surprise is my ultimate favorite. And they're playing with Mount Joy, which is my other favorite. They're going to be at Red Rocks, I believe, July 13th and 14th. So I want to see if we can hook up there and you guys hear some good music.
All right. Well, we will see if we can do that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I'm checking the calendar now for July what? 14th?
13th, 14th. They're playing 2 days. And they're a great band. It's a funny name.
That's a Monday and a Tuesday.
I know.
Yeah, so it looks like I'm in town those days. But I did want to say I look forward to catching up with you soon. Will you be at any of the upcoming seminars? Will you be at CalJam?
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna have my device. I don't have a booth this year. I'm hoping to do it next year. But yeah, I'd love to treat you and just don't get any more injections until I see you.
Yeah, so we're going to see you at CalJam. So Luke and I will be out there. We're actually doing interviews co-branded with CalJam this year, Chiro Hustle CalJam interviews. So we'll make sure that we get you on one of those out there as well.
Thank you so much, guys. I love what you're doing and really transforming this profession. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for being our guest today. And we just want you to know that we're in your corner and we want you to have a great rest of your day, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Peace out.
We'll catch you next time, okay?
See you at CalJam.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.